If in the 70s you knocked up a woman, you largely married her. The rate of single parenting in the 70s was about 11%. Today it's over 40%. So one of the things in the 70s was there was still some measure of parental accountability and the understanding that once you have created life, Mr. Scales, that new life you created is more important than your own life. So late last night on December 3rd, I posted a video exposing Lemanuel Hilarious Scales for what he really is, a deadbeat dad. This man is a very prominent local figure. He is elevated and put on a pedestal by the media, by government, by local companies, and by a following that he has. Yet in his personal life, he doesn't pay for his own kid. He is a deadbeat dad that does not pay child support. He is a deadbeat dad who has his license suspended. But the facade and the narrative that people want you to believe is that he is a great father and great philanthropist. I'm going to continue to focus on this because it is a very newsworthy story, and it is something that our community has to talk about. Who should be being held up as role models for young people and old people alike? And how are these people actually moving people forward to be less dependent and more independent versus using people for their own aggrandizement? Now, just 3 days before my story, Mr. Scales was talking about the 70s. He knows nothing about the 70s, and his Pollyanna approach to the 70s is almost laughable. So what I want to do is put up on the screen what he said about the 70s and break it down for him and talk about how that all becomes emblematic of a man that is stuck in his own self-pity and who is the very problem that he decries. He's the one who has put himself in the situation, not society, not some unseen forces. He's the one who has made the choices in his life that have put him where he is. So let's take the post step by step and break it down. So the first part, he talks about the 70s. I'll put it on screen. One steady job could hold a whole household together. A single paycheck covered the mortgage, the car note, groceries, and even a summer trip. Mom had time to raise the kids. Dad came home unplugged and actually rested. Life wasn't perfect, but it was manageable. So let me help Mr. Scales understand the 70s a little better. If in the 70s you knocked up a woman, you largely married her. The rate of single parenting in the 70s was about 11%. Today it's over 40%. So one of the things in the 70s was there was still some measure of parental accountability and the understanding that once you have created life, Mr. Scales, that new life you created is more important than your own life. And you put yourself inferior to that. Your new reason for existence is to make that life whole and complete. Which, by the way, if you do that, you end up being rewarded more than you can possibly imagine. So Mr. Scales has, as far as I can tell, 2 out-of-wedlock kids. So that means that there's 3 households, baby mama 1 household, baby mama 2 household, and Mr. Scales household number 3 with current girlfriend. So, hey, that's a big difference from the 70s, isn't it? In the 70s, when a man and woman had a kid, 90% of the time, they lived in one household. They only needed to support one household. They didn't have all these duplicative and overlapping expenses that are the result of your lifestyle choices, Mr. Scales, to go get a woman pregnant and then not be married and then have to have all these extra expenses. Now, am I saying that we need to go back to a time where you get a woman pregnant, you get married? Well, I'm saying that was a better time. That's the time that you're saying, the 70s. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not. But I think we need to do some introspection because in today's world, with birth control and other things, there is absolutely no excuse for people knocking each other up and having all of these out-of-wedlock kids. That is on them. That is on them and the choices that they made. So, but Hilarious Scales, he won't apologize for not paying child support, but he wants to tell you what a great parent he is because when he's with his kids, they have a good time. This is emblematic of what is wrong. So Mr. Scales is the face of what has happened from the 70s today to today. A society that has become self-centered, narcissistic, and focused on many times the wrong things. So he wants to ignore that it's actually his choices and his decisions that have put him where he is, and the woe's me. And by the way, the 70s maybe weren't all that great. Let's go on to part 2 of his post. 2025. 2 parents working nonstop. Bills higher than ever. Rent, childcare, insurance, groceries, everything feels impossible. Parents are worn out, running on fumes, and kids are watching us hustle just to stay afloat. And folks keep saying, that's just the world now. Okay, Mr. Scales, let's go back and break some of this down. In the 1970s, the average annual inflation rate was 7%. Over the last 10 years, the average annual inflation rate in the United States is 2.3%. 2.3% versus 7%. To not grasp the economic malaise that existed in the 70s is on you. You could do some research and learn a little bit about the 70s. You're at the height of blue pill stupidity in the post that you're making. In the 70s, men such as Mr. Scales were still being drafted to fight in the Vietnam War, right? So he talks about in his post, it feels impossible, okay? Everything feels impossible. Well, imagine you just got drafted to go fight in the Vietnam War. What a self-centered narcissist who woes me about how impossible things are, that in reality, because of the sacrifices of others, has not had to endure real sacrifices in his life, like having to go fight a foreign war. So let's talk about some of the events in the 70s. I made a list. The Kent State shootings, Watergate, the Arab oil embargo, 3 Mile Island, Jimmy Carter, the Iran hostage crisis, and the fall of Saigon. Those are the 70s. Those things all happened in the 70s. And trust me, Mr. Scales, parents got worn out in the 70s. Mr. Scales is the face of creating his own bed, and then when he has to lay in it, telling us all that it's somebody else's responsibility or somebody else's fault. So let's break down me. I was born in 1965. My mom and dad were divorced before or about when I was 1 year old, so I don't even remember them being married. My dad was a really good baseball player, He got invited to be part of the Pittsburgh Pirates farm system. And you know what he did ultimately? He didn't go. He knew that he was never going to be good enough to be a Major League Baseball player. What did he do instead? He thought about what he could do. He wasn't a college-educated man. He was a high school-educated man. He became an elevator installer, a job which I think he loved. I think he actually loved installing elevators, and he had an unbelievable pride in quality of work that he did installing elevators. He knew ultimately that his responsibility was not for fun and having a good time playing baseball in a farm system for a couple of years before he had to get serious about his kids. He knew that his responsibility from the moment he created the kid was the kid first. It's a lesson Mr. Scale should learn as he tries to scrape by, I guess, week by week at a level where he can't even pay his child support that is about $140 a week. Now let's look at what he closes with. He says, but let's be real. Most families would give anything, for the stability of our parents and grandparents once had. More time, more calm, more dinners at the table, more breathing room. Not luxury, just a life that doesn't break you. Well, who's breaking you, Mr. Scales? Who has put you in the situation that you're in, where you have multiple out-of-wedlock kids and you're not paying your child support? Who has done that to you? I don't think that Mr. Scales would give anything to have another lifestyle. I think he thinks he's having a good time, and that him having a good time is more important than his parental responsibilities and making sure, no matter what, that $140 a week is going to his own kid. So he paints these pictures in his post of family-type situations, of dinners at the table, of mom and dad, when he in his own personal life has created the exact opposite of that kind of picturesque family situation. He says, we're not failing, the system's failing. Really? I think that, yeah, that system is failing, but I think Mr. Scales is also failing. Despite all the puffery and all the hype, he cannot pay for his own kids. He cannot have a real charity. He does not seem to have a real job when he is at the point in his life where he should have a real job. I'm 60. I made my bones. I worked for decades in corporate America. I traveled the world doing work. I made my bones, okay? He's in his 30s. He should be at his maximum earning potential right now and worrying about making sure that he is providing for his family and his kids. Here's my opinion. Mr. Scales, lose the facade. You have a big following. Why don't you become a man? Why don't you change? Why don't you show us how you go from what you are now, a man who can't provide for his kids, to being a true example? You know, like, say, a man that became a teacher, became a policeman, became a fireman, became a successful businessman. Why don't you do those things? Why don't you put your kids first, even if that means you need to get a real job on the side? I'm not saying stop doing what you're doing, but get a real job. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Beans and rice, rice and beans, to use a Dave Ramsey term. If you're not able to pay for your kids, you need to refocus because it's not working. Whatever you're doing is not working. You're at the stage of your life where you should be earning plenty of money to be able to pay for your kids. You're a talented guy. If you could get out of this narcissistic thing you have going on and this self-centeredness, you could add a lot of value. You know, maybe start by going down and registering to vote and putting out a video encouraging people that you deal with that voting is important and they should register to vote instead of running around in your underwear downtown. So what I would say is to put your pants on literally. Become a real example to the community. Show kids. Do a video talking about the mistakes you've made in the life, not as a joke, as a serious thing, and how you're going to change them, how you're going to put your kids first, how every child, every teenager, every young adult, and every old adult should realize that when you bring life into the world, that is your number one priority, and your whole life should center around making sure that you're providing for that person. You know what? When you do that, you know, I only have one kid. You know, he's out of the house. But when you do that, I always loved the work that I did, you know, and always provided. There was never a question as to material need for my wife and my kid. And I was not a big sacrifice on my part. It's just making good decisions. I mean, just make good decisions so you're not in the situation. Now, I like the quote also of you make the meaning of the past by what you do with it today and tomorrow. And you're in the situation you're in. So what are you going to do with that situation to educate others and to get on a path that is a better outcome than probably what I think the outcome is, that you're some sort of washed up 30-something-year-old wannabe influencer who can't even make enough money to pay for your own kids' child support. And also, you need to understand that people are using you as a mascot. When people, Jeff Weiler, Sharefax, Local 12, they're using you as their mascot. You know, it's easy for them because you're not threatening to any of them. You're never going to stand up against injustice. You're never going to stand up against problems in the criminal justice system. You're a lapdog to all those things. You don't have any real views that would challenge the system. And you absolutely, especially what I think is the economic range of a lot of your followers, you should be all about trying to stop injustice, corruption, in the system today. You should be all about that. But instead, you're a lapdog. You're a safe lapdog. They know anybody that brings you on as their little mascot knows you're never going to challenge the system. You're never going to be critical of the status quo. You're going to do your humor. You're going to make some little side comments. But the reality is, Hilarious Scales is nothing more than a safe mascot. So, Mr. Scales, you're afraid to talk to me. You're afraid to man up. You want to be seen as this great philanthropist and father when you are incapable of ever even saying, I'm sorry. I am wrong. It's my responsibility that my kid does not have the money that he is supposed to have, and I am going to fix it like a man. Instead, I'm a great father, all this kind of nonsense. It's time for you to grow up, Mr. Scales, and it's time to drop the facade. And you can say all you want about me talking about it. It's not going to make me popular to talk about you. You're a very popular local figure, okay? But it's going to feel good in my heart, and I'm going to keep doing it because we need to have a discussion about the kind of people that are being elevated by our business community, by our government, by our parents, by a following that are being put on pedestals as being role models. Because I don't think you're a role model. I think you could become a role model maybe, but right now you're a phony. You are a phony. And the world needs to know that, and it is a relevant news story, and the Watchdog Wire is going to keep covering it.